if you're going to do surgery on someone, you're not going to not sew them back up.
I think it's quite easy to imagine your body being used in various forms and ways.
It alters my body and my mind for a time.
And that was one of the first times in a very long time where I didn't know how I felt. That's when I learned that Doms too need aftercare.
Welcome to Domed Podcast. We are your hosts, Mistress Gemma
And Goddess Seraphyna.
Are you ready to be domed?
Aftercare, a very important and what I believe to be necessary, a part of a DS and BDSM kink dynamic.
I don't know if it has to be necessary, but I do think it should be an important part if it is desired or needed.
For our viewers, aftercare is a check-in with both the sub that you just played with and then also checking in personally with yourself.
When there's a scene play, let's say, a lot of vulnerability is accessed, right? And there's also a big concoction of neurochemicals that happen. Adrenaline, norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, potentially cortisol, depending on maybe the activity. And so that could be linked to a altered state, right? So there's subspace and dom space. And some liken it to like a runner's high or just a high that you get when you have that big rush. Then there also can potentially be a comedown of sorts. And so for sub drop or dom drop, because it could go both ways and it could be experienced very differently between people. For some people, it could be an emotional lethargy. It could be a physical lethargy. They could feel maybe out of sorts, out of body. And for me, I liken it to you would not allow someone who has just drank a bunch of drinks drive. And so it is important to make sure that as a dom, that your submissive is in the right headspace to go back to the default world. Because they and us as doms could really be transported into a different space where, in my experience, time ceases to exist.
Yeah,
it really passes when I'm in a dom space.
Yes.
I didn't realize what dom drop could be. I think it's a bit more subtle for me, and it kind of creeps up. But having some rituals after to provide aftercare for myself or seeking it out with people that I feel safe and supported with really helps me, reset and be more mindful of my energy.
When learning about aftercare, it was very quick to understand the importance of why I needed to provide that comfort or guidance into next spaces. Also a check-in, like you said, it requires so much vulnerability from the sub to provide this. So I think it's quite easy to imagine your body being used in a various forms and ways, or there could be humiliation, degradation involved. And then if someone just says all these terrible things to you and then leaves and does not check in of, hey, are you okay? That was intense, or provide that comfort that they're needing at that time. That made a lot of sense to me. The performance piece that I did less than a month ago, and it wasn't until then that I left the situation. I dommed someone during the performance, and then after I felt incredibly depleted, disoriented, out of my body. I was so in my body and out of it at the same time. And then it felt like people kept asking, how are you feeling? I always know how I feel. It's so autonomic for me. And that was one of the first times in a very long time where I didn't know how I felt. And it was very confusing. And that's when I learned that doms too need aftercare. And I'm not saying that you need to receive that from your sub. Personally, I wouldn't. But it was providing aftercare to myself. And I actually texted you and I asked, is it Gemma who is providing this, or is it daytime you that is providing this aftercare?
Or the royal me.
The royal you.
Yeah.
Gemma's pretty royal too.
But there's a grander part.
Yes, yes. So it is royal you or Gemma, the one providing the aftercare to you as a dom. Mm-hmm. Would you like to answer?
No, I'd love to hear your answer and how you interpreted my answer.
Yes. So I interpreted it as, well, what you told me was royal daytime you was the one to provide that. And that made a lot of sense for me. I kind of described that the performance piece felt as if I was being dommed by Seraphyna. And then even though I was consensually being used by her as a channel to bring her art to life, I did feel really used. And I didn't feel good that I felt used. And I didn't know if I needed Seraphyna to come back and give me that support. And what I learned is that royal daytime me knows me best. And I know the things that usually bring me to recalibration. So what I interpreted was daytime you was the one that provides
Royal me.
royal you.
I
Royal
operate
you.
in all parts of the day, 24/7.
Yes. So royal you is the one that provides the aftercare, which feels really right, honestly. And it's something that I highly, 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 highly recommend for baby doms. I wish that I received this advice is please provide aftercare to yourself. I now have a ritual that I like to do. I love water.
Yeah.
I'm
so a
such
bath.
a water baby. No, so yes, a dear friend has a beautiful hot tub on a roof that's looking over the city, and it's big, and I can lay and have the water kind of take the energy that I took on,
Absorb it, yeah.
and that it cleanses me. And then I do a really lovely sauna looking out at the city, and I get to recalibrate. And I tell myself when I step out of this space of, you know, the hot tub and the sauna, that I am now cleansed and I am now stepping into royal me, and Seraphyna is going to nap time. And it's a really helpful for me, but I don't think that, obviously aftercare for subs is incredibly important and I honor it with such respect. And I think it's very important to talk about doms having their aftercare as well.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said putting Seraphyna to sleep. I think for me, there is not as clear of a delineation between the royal me and Gemma. I've integrated quite a bit of who I am into Gemma, and Gemma has always been a part of the royal me, but maybe a bit more magnified and emphasized, or something that I was able to step into more confidently.
Yes.
And so for my rituals, I don't say I have any specific rituals. I tend to get very hungry after an intense play scene. I need a moment to kind of veg out and be thoughtless. I too get through this space where I'm not able to consciously process things as much. I would say it doesn't happen very frequently. I adapt pretty quickly. But there were instances like multiple day sessions where it did take a lot out of me, or like really deep mind fuckery.
Yes.
Which I love the thrill of it. But also, yes, it alters my body and my mind for a time. My really good friend who's an acupuncturist told me about this practice that her mentor told her.
Oh, yes.
Of having some kind of object, may it be like a rock outside your house or a vase or anything that you choose, and to purposely just place your hands on it and release whatever energy that you've absorbed from others, like their patients or your submissives, and releasing it into that and not bringing it into your house.
Yes.
So recently did some landscaping, and I have a ginkgo tree, and I'm very excited for it to continue to grow, because I do think that's going to be my vessel to which I can release the energy. I read this interesting study recently, and granted, it seems like they only is a sample of males, because in relation to post BDSM scenes, there was a drop in cortisol and an increase in testosterone and a diminished capacity for unconscious processing. So that goes to show like the altered state that we might get into.
Yes.
And it kind of lined up with this hyperfrontality hypothesis that our sensory part of our brain has increased blood flow, which reduces the blood flow to our decision making, our short-term memory. We do get into a high.
Yes.
So with my submissives, I tend to ask when I am negotiating, do they need aftercare? What does that look like? And sometimes it's looked like they just want to lay there kind of in their floating space, not being touched, not talking, and just kind of absorbing, just being in that present stillness. Others have said a little bit of touch. And that's obviously for the Dom and the sub to discuss like what is appropriate and what the boundaries may be for each. Others want a shower, want to rinse off, just a drink of water, a little chat. Others say they don't need much. They feel pretty good and ready to go. I tend to have my submissives help me clean up as part of the ritual and process, and we get to discuss a little and whatever else they may need. And I've also met Doms where, you know, the energy of providing aftercare may be somewhat of a boundary for them in ways. I do think as a Dom, you have somewhat of a responsibility if you bring someone into a space. Like if you're going to do surgery on someone, you're not going to not sew them back up and make sure that they have the necessary means to, you know, heal their wounds. Not saying that that's directly translated to what a submissive has. But you are exposing something. And so I've met Doms where if someone wants aftercare, at least pro Doms, if they want aftercare, then it might be an extra charge for an extra amount of time. And I think it's to each their own to decide what they know they could responsibly take on. As well as for the sub then to acknowledge and research for the type of Dom they would need to be aligned with, depending on their self-awareness of what their needs are.
Yes, completely. Aftercare is one of the things that provides this, but I'm learning more and more through my practice how required self-awareness is. And obviously this can help discover new awarenesses that you might not have had, but how incredibly helpful and necessary self-awareness is to have a healthy dynamic and to be able to know what you need, to be able to ask for it. And I think that that's coming up quite a bit, including myself. And I thought /think/know that I know myself very, very well. And I think that these spaces allow you to have self-discovery that you did not know you were going to discover. And communicating those discoveries is incredibly helpful to have the healthiest dynamic.
It takes responsibility on both sides.
Yes.
Self-agency.
When talking about it earlier on how it was very obvious as to why subs would need aftercare because of the vulnerability in which they share and provide, Doms provide this same exact, not type of vulnerability, but same level of vulnerability as subs do. And I think that that's not talked about or acknowledged too much. That with that comes that discovery and that knowing and communication.
That brings me to an interesting discussion and thought and question I have that I had with another Dom. And we were talking about how much of our maybe royal selves we show to our submissives, at least in a professional setting, at least. And she said that she doesn't really ever show the royal her to her subs because she believes that that just diminishes maybe her power, is how I interpret it.
Yes.
And perhaps that is for some cases and some submissives given what the dynamic is like. But for me, it feels quite the opposite, that when I have shown the royal me in certain aspects, it's heightened the dynamic. Or at least those that don't want to see that want to live in a fantasy that I don't personally feel compelled to engage in long term, because I don't think I could keep that up. And with that, you were saying like you wouldn't look to your subs for aftercare. I wouldn't necessarily look to my subs for aftercare immediately after a play session, but my long-term subs and more lifestyle subs, I know I could lean on them in that case. Or I am able to speak about particular sessions or play times that have affected me or that were difficult for me. And it is something about they understand the space too, that there's that relating.
Yes.
I do reach out to my default friends as well.
Yes.
But there can be a miss if they don't understand what that looks like or what that feels like if they haven't experienced it.
I think that you know that I'm discovering that. That not everyone in my life is going to understand this profession and this dynamic. And I am really grateful that I do have loved ones in the kink community, you included, that I can discuss this. And I might minimally retract. I don't think that unless it's a dynamic that I've had for a long period of time and there is this understanding. And I think that Seraphyna I know I said I put her to sleep, but I am compartmentalizing because I'm trying to understand and be able to acknowledge and decipher what parts of myself are Seraphyna and what parts of myself are royal me for the blend to happen, because I think that the blend has already very much been there. But it's interesting, I'm getting feedback from people that know royal me and then have tastes of Seraphyna, not the entirety, but they say, put royal you to sleep, and I go, oh, Seraphyna is just as giggly. I am quite sadistic when it is desired, and the giggles are going to come out.
Desired for yourself?
No, it needs to be mutual. It needs to be with a masochist, because I feel such deep empathy that it is the exchange of I need to feel their excitement and their intrigue, that if there's hesitation from them, then I'm going to not identify it as my own, but I'm going to understand that the hesitation is in the room, that I get giggly and I get excited and I really lean in when someone enjoys me enjoying myself.
Absolutely. They should enjoy you enjoying yourself. I think that is the basis of it.
Yes, but it's interesting because, yes, I do think that potentially I am showing royal me, but I am compartmentalizing just so I can identify and then redo the blend.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Part of the process, so you can differentiate and understand, and you could then more acutely bring out whichever parts you need, whatever levers or buttons.
Yes.
That goes to the greater self-awareness about yourself.
I love dissecting ideas with you, and it really helps a lot. So thank you. Did you enjoy being dommed? Like, subscribe, and add your worships in the comments. Follow us on all socials linked in the bio below.